Dr. Nazar Bartosik. With his focus on the future of nuclear physicists, he is encouraging the world to see their underutilized potential. He believes that if we start to see what nuclear physicists can contribute outside of their labs, we will build better organizations and a better world.
Hello. What do you see here? Any ideas? Stars. That's something I've heard before. If I would show this to an astrophysicist, they would look at the shape of these circles, at how they are distributed in space, and I'm pretty sure they would say that this does not look like stars. But to an untrained eye, that's a reasonable assumption. I'm a nuclear physicist, and I remember at the beginning of my master's degree, I was sitting in the room with other students at our university in Ukraine, and our professor looked at us and he said, "You all are really lucky to be studying physics, because if you manage to learn this, then learning anything else will feel for you like a breeze." Looking back at it now, I can see what he meant. I went on doing my PhD in Germany, and by now it has been 15 years that I've been doing research at the biggest nuclear physics laboratory in the world, at CERN, where we're trying to understand how the universe works. But all that would be impossible without first learning to think like a physicist. And the very first thing we are trained to do is to never take the surface level image at its face value, but always look deeper. To ask why again and again until we understand the underlying structure and mechanisms that make it look the way it does. And we are trying not only to ask why, but also answer those questions. And to do that, we learn many different disciplines. We learn calculus, linear algebra, statistical analysis, quantum mechanics, computer programming, simulation methods. All these are tools that allow us to connect the quantum level effects in subatomic particles with behavior of huge stars and galaxies into one complete picture of the world. It's like being a detective who is trying to connect the unrelated pieces of evidence into one big picture. So, in other words, we physicists are very good at paying attention to very small details, but never lose track of the big picture. Looking at myself, I think my obsession with details started when I was around 5 years old. I remember at that time my parents had a rule that every day I had to read one story. So I remember I was sitting in my bed with this book of ancient Greek mythology, and there is one story that I still remember. It was about this young man who was preparing to go to war with his crew on a ship. And before departure, his father asked him, "Dear son, if you survive, please put up these white sails up as a sign that you've made it." He went on. They won the war. He even fell in love with a woman there. But he was not allowed to take her back with him. And he was so upset about it that he forgot to put those white sails up. So as he was returning back, his father was standing on top of the mountain, and he saw that ship coming back with black sails, and he thought that his son is dead. He couldn't take it, and he threw himself off the cliff. When the son returned home and realized what had happened, he was devastated. And that story stayed with me, this realization that such a small detail turned a happy ending into a tragedy. Now, to make use of those details, you first need to know what those details are. Let me give you an example. One day I was walking with my girlfriend, and she saw this pair of cheap plastic sunglasses that she wanted to buy. To her, they looked stylish, cheap, dark, they tick every box. My first reaction was, that's garbage, you're not buying them. But you know, it's 2026 outside, right? She's an empowered, independent woman. Who am I to tell her what to do? So she still bought them. But when we got home, I gave her my lecture anyway. I told her, look, this, but seriously, look, this is a spectrum of radiation from the sun. It has a narrow visible part that your eyes can see, and it has an invisible part that your eyes cannot see, in particular the ultraviolet light on the left. That ultraviolet can damage your skin, causing cancer, and it can damage your eyes, burning the retina cells. Now, your eyes have natural protection mechanisms, the pupil. When it's too bright, it shrinks and it blocks that light, protecting your retina. But when you're putting those cheap sunglasses on, they make it dark, so your eye thinks that it's safe, and it opens the pupil up, letting even more ultraviolet into your retina. So you're actually causing more damage to your eyes by wearing those sunglasses than not wearing any glasses at all. That's why it's so important to wear quality sunglasses with dedicated UV protection layer that blocks that radiation. When she heard that, she went, oh. She quickly started looking on her phone and showed me a 200-pound pair of sunglasses that are now on her birthday wish list. Not exactly what I was hoping for, but at least we saved her eyes. But what's important to note here is that she still opposed my advice, even though she knew that I have her best interest. But once I explained her the underlying principle, she took it very easily. Now, that's the struggle I had with just one empowered woman. Imagine how difficult it is to convince a collective of people who have been doing the same thing for years to change their mind. But if you have someone who cares and can explain the underlying reasons such as they understand, then adopting change is much easier. One of my passions is photography. And even though I carry my camera with me quite often, I don't really take many pictures. Most people have cameras in their phones and they take loads of pictures. I remember I was once standing at the bridge in Venice with dozens of people all staring at the same building, taking the same pictures with their phones. I never do that. I only take pictures of something that is significant, something that I cannot find on the internet in 5 minutes. And that's not necessarily because I'm arrogant. That's just how I'm trained as a physicist. Like one theoretician said, the most important task in physics is to know or recognize which things to neglect. On the way here, I was having an early flight, and there was this beautiful sky with a sunrise with red lights. And I noticed a group of young people because they had a really good professional camera. They saw that sunrise as well, and they wanted to take a group picture. So there is this one guy holding two girls, and the other girl taking the picture of them. And just from the way she was holding the camera, I could see she doesn't know what she's doing. She was holding the camera like this, like a smartphone, not like this. Then the second red flag was when the flash popped up, because that's not the situation to use a flash. It produces this harsh white light that ruins the colors. Then she pressed the button, it flashed, and I could see the preview picture on her screen with their whitewashed faces. So as I was walking up the plane, I was shaking my head thinking, she ruined it. She had people, she had the landscape, she had the professional camera, she just didn't know how to use it. I see you know what I mean. And that is how I feel about physicists nowadays. Like that professional camera, we have a unique combination of really valuable skills that are mostly overlooked by the corporate world. When we leave academia, we are usually hired for very narrow technical positions based on our very specific hard skills. And yes, a nuclear physicist can be a software developer, data scientist, machine learning engineer, technical writer. We can do all those things, but that's not the point. Our biggest asset is the ability to look at things differently, to analyze them deeply, and to solve really complex problems on our own without anyone's supervision. And even if there is some task for which we lack some skill, well, we can learn it really quickly. Because for us, the main goal is to solve the problem, not to protect our ego. My second passion is rollerblading. Yes. I started learning it in my 30s, right before COVID, and even though that's not the most common thing to learn at that age, I tried skiing before. I really loved the thrill of it, and I found that to be the most affordable way to replicate it. And as I was getting better and more confident, I wanted to learn some tricks, so I went to a skate park. And the very first thing I wanted to learn was to drop in to a half pipe like that. Now, it looks scary just on the picture. Trust me, it looks way more scary when you're standing there on the edge with unstable wheels under your feet. So I watched probably 100 of YouTube videos explaining how to do it. And every single one of them said, you have to lean forward and just fall with your face down. And trust me, that curve will pick you up and you'll be okay. The only thing, don't even try to lean forward to save your butt, because then you will definitely fall. And as a physicist, from the equilibrium perspective, it made total sense. I understood it. But I just could not possibly do it. Every single time, my body would instinctively lean back to save me. And like I said, I was falling again and again until I couldn't feel my bottom anymore. And at some point, I was so desperate that I thought, okay, I have to change something. So I stepped on that edge again, and I just, for a fraction of a second, turned off my brain and just fall, like they said, with my face down. And miraculously, it worked. I didn't fall. Or to be fair, I did fall a few meters later just because the speed was unusually fast, but that was much easier to deal with than the fear. And that's what I feel the companies need today. The courage to give people like us the creative freedom to use our main skills. To let us not only work in those isolated silos on crunching numbers and writing algorithms, but take on bigger strategic problems that have real significant impact. Because you see, in a typical corporate structures, there are multiple layers separating the decision makers from the data that drives those decisions. And as the data travels up, at every layer, piece of knowledge gets lost in translation. But people like us, we don't need translation. We can look at every layer, we can see the whole picture, and we can notice details that others would miss. And that gives competitive advantage to companies, and that makes us more passionate and happier with the work we do. So the next time you're discussing a strategic decision at your board meeting, I want you to ask yourself, do we know a nuclear physicist who might see some details that we might be missing? Thank you.
Dr. Nazar, everybody. Thank you so much.